School choice could include public school, private school, parochial school, or even homeschooling, whatever works best for that child. In my own experience, I support choice because we had that choice for our 3 children. We chose public for part of their educational experience. We chose private Christian school for one of our children. And we chose homeschooling for all 3 for portions of their life. And for one of our kids, we found out that the best way to complete their education was to get them in a VOTEC center so they could have a vocational opportunity, which just blew away all of the cobwebs in their academic experience.
I am a person who taught in the LA Community College system for 20 years, so I know the value of public education. And school choice is the opposite of that. It's the Republicans' plan to privatize K-12 education, and it is their plan to take out valuable taxpayer dollars away from our local neighborhood public schools and funnel them to unaccountable private schools. I support our public schools, which educate 90% of our kids and are the only K-12 education model that must provide a free and fair education to all children, regardless of their background.
Choice in education, it provides competition so that all school systems can at least have the opportunity to bump up their game. If they're losing students under the choice program in the state, school choice, you'll find schools from all of the spectrums begin to compete if they're going to succeed. And I think that's a good thing as well.
The taxpayer dollars would come out of our public schools, and instead those dollars would go to wealthy taxpayers who could already afford private school tuition, or even to students who are already enrolled in private schools. We, in fact, even have evidence of private schools raising tuition to take advantage of vouchers.
Vouchers, we don't have any system in place, but there are states that already have school choice that includes either tuition tax credits or vouchers. And we ought to be supportive of that and support states to do the best in those areas. But a voucher will basically say, if you want to make a choice in education, you can take this voucher or you can take a tuition tax credit that says that you are educating. And so we will give you in an equitable fashion with anyone else who provides an education for their kids. You can take that to the private school, the Christian school, the charter school, if it's not a public charter, the academy, or the public school, and pay for your students' education.
At this point, there is no accountability. Private schools are free to do what they want. They are free to discriminate against students with disabilities and not accept them, whereas public schools have to accept them. The private schools do not have to have things like teacher certification, curriculum quality, and the measuring of student outcomes. And as a result, what we do know is that in states with large private school voucher programs, such as Louisiana, Indiana, and Ohio, the academic assessments done of these students was actually lower than their public school peers. Theoretically, everyone would be eligible, but the reality is that private schools are not accountable. They don't have to accept everybody who applies. And in fact, they can be quite choosy about who they accept. Maybe they don't want to accept the disabled or people of limited English proficiency or LGBTQ students. Hence, the school voucher, it would be used only by a select group of students, and most likely it would benefit the wealthiest of our students.
There is nothing in our Constitution about education. We've really taken that And in certain cases, I think it's valuable. IDEA, for instance, that deals with disabilities. Maybe we ought to have some federal involvement there to make sure that the health, safety, security, and educational health, safety, and security is met for all students, especially those with special needs. And states will be different on that. And local communities have the ability or the lack of ability in those areas. So maybe there is a place in the area of health and human services to take that under our federal control. But vouchers, we don't have any system in place. If you look at the difference between what someone would get in a choice setting, they're anywhere between 6 to 20 additional days of education for someone in a choice setting where the parents can make that choice versus an inner city tough school district. Choice would give an opportunity to those kids as well. Regardless of their economic status, they would have that voucher or that tuition tax credit in certain cases to put toward education.
Clearly, school choice would worsen educational equity. It would take funding away from public schools, which must accept everybody into its doors. And in fact, it serves the overwhelming majority of students. Instead, it would give it to unaccountable private schools so that only a select few and often wealthy students can get their private education subsidized by taxpayer dollars. To me, that's a definition of inequity in education. Well, contrary to what Trump or Republicans say, the federal government and the U.S. Department of Education do not set or mandate school curriculum or tell educators what to teach. What they do for public education is provide funding in programs like Title I, which is for low-income schools. It gives them an extra boost for them to be able to help students in high need. Or the federal government provides funding for IDEA, which helps ensure public schools have enough funds to help students with disabilities. Of course, they require much more attention, and it is expensive to be able to help students with disabilities. And that is a huge need that the federal government steps in to play. And therefore, the public schools can fulfill its mandate to serve everybody who walks in the door.
Almost equally across the entire country, over 90% of the white paper regulatory permitting requirements, testing requirements, come from the federal government. That's a huge cost because every teacher who wants a kid fix in front of him or her every day, where that child is there to be educated, what these teachers, generally speaking, Democrat or Republican teachers, makes no difference for the most part. They got into education so they could teach kids. But so many get frustrated with being a teacher, not because of the classroom, but because of the paperwork that they're filling out.